All right, there we go.
Game on.
Game on. That will be the first of many 80s references that for you kids following along at home, you will have no idea what we're talking about because sadly, those movies were all released 30 years ago, Dave.
Some of these quotes are only available to view on VHS, so you might want to check out the garage sales this summer.
Maybe even
Otherwise,
Betamax.
you'll
Let's be
you'll
honest.
be lost.
Let's really throw a curveball in there and throw Betamax in there and just really have at it.
Even tougher. Even tougher.
Trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center.
Well, welcome to the first episode of the Diggles Diamonds podcast. I am Ben Diggle. I will be your co-host. Obviously, for some reason, I put my name on the company, so Diggles Diamonds it is. If you're not familiar with my work, I am previously a baseball writer. Have done spent 8 years writing baseball for the Peoria Journal-Star. I've also done work for Prep Baseball Report, Perfect Game, and Baseball America. I have spent time in the travel ball ranks. I co-founded the Central Illinois Outlaws, which has been incredibly successful during my run there. 23 players onto the pro ranks and bordering on 200 to college. I'm not sure where we ended up there officially, but pretty close. And then last but not least, I come from the coaching ranks at the college level as well. I spent 10 years as the recruiting coordinator at Illinois Central College, an NCAA program, D2 program based in East Peoria. The alma mater of one Hall of Famer, James Thome. So there you go. So, and I am thrilled to be joined by my co-host. Sometimes,
Like cohort.
what's
Cohort
that?
sounded better.
Yeah,
It sounds like you said cohort. I'm taking it.
I was going to say accomplice in crimes as well, but the statute of limitations is all expired on those. So,
Mostly, yeah.
Dave, tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, as I told you, Ben, I should never have earlier when we were talking before this, I should never have let you go first. Uh, but that's all right. My baseball curriculum vitae is not going to be as diverse and thick as Mr. Diggle here. However, I'm David Bentley, and the fact is that I was second team All State in T-ball, even though I led our team in strikeouts, which is it's a feat. It really shows that the defense it was there. Joking aside, I'm from Peoria, just like Mr. Diggle. I went to Peoria Richwoods. I was brought along by one of the greatest coaches of all time, rest in peace, Rick Snar, also known as Old Smoothie, to those of us who knew him best. I went on to play baseball at Monmouth College under Coach Roger Sander. Ended up transferring to Southern Illinois University, where I blacked out for several years until finally graduating. I got my law degree in 2007 at John Marshall in Chicago. And I started getting the itch probably a year ago just to get back into baseball. Just always had the love, wish I hadn't given it up and tried to stay with it as most people do. But last year I started helping scout high school and JUCO players for Coach Paterni at Monmouth College. I mostly just send him scouting reports. If I know a family or I have a contact that knows a family, I'll do some pseudo recruiting, but I stay in my lane. It's been fun. It's been hard finding good ball players that are a good fit for a 4-year private school that has high academics. It's got to be a fit for both sides. Monmouth isn't Johns Hopkins, but their average ACT is 26. I think their average GPA is about 3.4. So I'm not sure how I got in, but yeah, that's been a blast. And that's kind of how this idea of this podcast, at least on my end, came up. Is I'm just bothering Diggle on a tri-weekly basis, asking him questions about potential Monmouth Scott recruits. Also, right now, I'm an assistant coach for my son's team at Athletes HQ in Elgin. Before that, I was a head coach for my son's teams for about 4 years in the Geneva Baseball Association. Also about 2 weeks ago, I guess a little bit more because it was Black Friday, 40% off. I started Driveline's course to get certified in pitching, just kind of for shits and giggles. Once I finish, I've got vague hopes and dreams of, trying to help out a high school program around here where I live. I live currently in Geneva, Illinois, sandwiched in between Batavia and St. Charles. And so, that sums it up for me.
And just to follow up on what Dave said, I had been kicking this idea around because I'm still trying to figure out what the best way to get baseball information is to people. I've tried social media. I have tried writing. I ran a Patreon last spring that kind of tried to revive traditional sports coverage at the high school level for baseball. And it was a blast, but I was churning out sometimes 2,000 words a night for 80 people tops. So it's, we're trying to roll with the new here and, provide a little video, some player highlights. Eventually we'll be bringing on players as we get into showcase season and the regular season and summer ball. Hopefully some college coaches will be joining us. So it should be a good, all around representation for everybody. So we first time away from the dock, so there may be a sinking at some point, but Dave and I can both swim, so we'll BS our way back to shore, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and get started here with our first segment around the horn. And so let's see if I can do this. So first up around the horn this week, some big news. Obviously, the big signings, Juan Soto, Kyle Tucker to the Cubs. But I have a little bit of a man crush, Mr. Bentley, on one Kyle Teal, the return that the White Sox got in their trade with the Red Sox for Garrett Crochet.
He should be batting third, I would think, opening day based on their current roster.
Here's the crazy part. The White Sox are 3 deep at catcher right now. They can't put a major league team anywhere else on the field, but they're 3 deep at catcher with some pretty good young options. Corey Lee, who had a pretty good run last year, and whose college summer coach I know, Brian Lewis, who speaks very highly of him. He's probably third right now. There's a Dominican kid. I want to say his name is maybe Enriquez. I can't remember, but he's number 2. But this kid, despite only being a year out of Virginia, where my good friend Drew Dickinson, the pitching coach, just absolutely raved about him. Everybody calls him a bat first catcher, and the insane part is I think his defense is better, but the bat plays here. I mean, as you can see, he just absolutely unloaded on that ball. But what really intrigues me is his defense, and it's not just that he's got a cannon for an arm. Watch this. He's going to get rid of this thing sidearm. And he does that all the time. And this one, it looks like he hands the ball to the second baseman. That's how fast it gets there. So between those two things, pretty impressive there, Mr. Bentley. What do you think?
I like the return. I knew who Kyle Teal was mostly because of playing MLB The Show, and me and my son. I mean, now they have the real names of
I know, it's amazing.
A single A guy.
Yep.
Or, even guys will get drafted in July, and then 2 weeks later, there's an upload on MLB The Show.
Yep.
Which my son always gets mad about because then we have to wait 12 seconds before his instant gratification. But like Christian Moore, so we took our family vacation to Tennessee this year, and we watched the World Series because you couldn't really walk around anywhere.
Yeah, couldn't go anywhere, I'm sure.
Being on TV, and my son fell in love with SEMO, Christian Moore, and that dude was on MLB The Show at the end of the year. And so, of course, he, assigned SEMO to his team, the Yankees, changed all his abilities to 99 and whatnot. But I just love that. And so that's how I knew who Teal was. I like it. I like the return finally. It's been
I
a while.
love there is nothing more that I love than going through the show and I will like, hey, I'm drafting only players under age 25 or only pro guys from Illinois or stuff like and it's amazing. Like it's so much fun. Especially with guys that I coached, guys like Nathan
Yeah, like
Lavender and
McCoy in San
McCoy.
Diego.
Yeah.
As soon as he got called up, yeah, we had to
Yep.
move him into the starting lineup. Maybe even
Absolutely.
increase his power and whatnot, so it wasn't so
No,
hard to start him.
I make him earn it. He's got to earn it. All right. Speaking of those two, let's take a look here at these next two. My good friend Nathan Lavender getting a bit of good news this week. Let's see here as soon as that starts. There we go. Here's Lavi. Nathan Lavender, a product out of El Paso Gridley High School, just north of Bloomington. Went to Illinois and drafted in the 14th round and just moved insanely quick through the system. Was in AAA with the Mets, and his big news this week got picked up by the Tampa Bay Rays in the 8th round of the Rule 5 draft. So Nate has to stay on the Major League roster or he has to be sent back to the Mets. And then this gentleman we just talked about, Mason McCoy, whose younger brother Michael we might mention here towards the end of the show. Mace just got re-signed by the Padres. His second stint in the bigs, first year was with the Blue Jays and then this year with the Pods. And the good news is I liked what they saw and brought him back. So he'll have an opportunity to make the opening day roster. But pretty cool story for a kid from Washington High School and then only having 3 collegiate offers to, going to ICC and being an All-American and then to Iowa and eventually getting to the bigs after a 6th round draft. So pretty cool. Let's stop it there on Mr. Appenzeller. We'll come back to him in just a second. Probably Tony Vitello, as you said, shouldn't clear locker space down in Knoxville.
Yes, I think Tennessee has done a great job of signing and getting guys to commit who are going to be on major league rosters in late July. But you have to tip the cap either way because, I mean, Appenzeller, I'm sure you've looked at the list. I've seen him top 5 in the nation.
Yep.
I mean, he's filthy from the left side and
just that low 3/4 slingy, can spin it to righties or lefties. It's going to be. He's one of those kids. He reminds me a lot of the Noah. Is it Noah Schultz with the White Sox?
Yeah,
suburban Chicago kid. He was in Double-A this year. He's 6'9", so that's a little different. But Appenzeller's 6'5", 6'6", and either way, you put that kind of extension with the ability to spin it, man, it's going to be great guns. He'll move just as quick as Schultz, I have no doubt. And Schultz, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on a big league roster coming out of spring training.
Also with Tennessee, you got to mention, speaking of Jim Thome earlier in the show, his son Landon, he's at 2026, but about a month ago committed to Tennessee as well. I don't know. Like I've thought about that. Obviously if he goes top 3 rounds, I think he signs, but obviously he doesn't need the money. His dad's a Hall of Famer. They live in Burr Ridge. Family's always had a good head on all their shoulders. Maybe mom, maybe dad says, nah, you're going to go play in Knoxville until you're 21 or your 3rd year.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could happen. Appenzeller, no way. I think no shot. He's signing. He's going to go for sure 1st round. And then they got Ethan Moore, who's a top 10 Illinois guy, shortstop out of Oak Park River Forest. I think he goes for sure. He's, I'll defer to you if you think he'll get drafted. Maybe he could, but
it's not a talent thing. Like if this is, 2005, absolutely, he's gone.
Yeah.
Does he sign? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe it's a 25th or 30th round pick and it makes more sense to go to Tennessee and show out for 3 years or go the JUCO route and do the old draft and follow. But, the draft is such a crapshoot. And I try to tell that to people and it's like it doesn't register because they think these GMs all are on the right path.
Yeah.
And then they are, don't get me wrong, they're running $1 billion organizations, but I've had like one of my first years with the Reds. I tell this story all the time. They called me and they said, we need Justin Parr, who at that time was coming off his redshirt sophomore year at Illinois, had led the Big Ten in hitting, but hadn't hit well overall. It was on fire in conference play. And they said, we need him to come to Cincinnati for the draft workout, which is usually a pretty good sign they're going to take you. Goes to the draft workout, works out great, runs well, ran like 6'5", 6'6", 95 from the outfield, just puts on a show. And draft rolls around, and I, of course, at that time I'm working still. Well, at this time I'm still working for the Reds, but I'm patched in through my boss. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, we'll get there probably looking at after round 10. I was like, fine, whatever. I'm talking to the kid, and literally probably an hour later, hey, we're done. We're not taking any more outfielders. We're out. And I was like, well, that went fast. And then it turns around, the next day, and they took, I'll never forget this as long as I live. They took a kid out of South Carolina hitting 239 and an outfielder out of UCLA that hit 245 over the kid from the Big Ten, just because they didn't think the Big Ten was as good. And I mean, just like, here you go from tearing up a draft showcase, which should be the great equalizer, to, nah, you didn't play in the SEC or the Pac-12, so we're not gonna pull the trigger. Just it's stuff like that happens all the time. It's kind of the basic response, I guess, would be the way to phrase it.
Yeah.
So you never know. But let's have a look at Mr. Appenzeller and Mr. Moore here real quick. Mr. Appenzeller. I mean, just look at that.
Look at that run into the lefty.
So much tail. And then Moore here, switch hitter, number one shortstop in the class, can put the ball in play, really swings it from the left side. I think that's where he might be asked to stick at that side unless he can develop a real consistent drive from the right. But obviously runs very well. Just a really nice player. Before we jump into the recruiting session, though, I want to talk about some things that are going to potentially continue to screw up recruiting. And that being the ruling last night, and this might come into play because our good friend Mr. Bentley is a lawyer. Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia sues the NCAA saying, my years at junior college shouldn't count. I should get more years. So the judge in Tennessee issues an injunction and will allow him those years. So Dave, kind of just obviously we're all very early in this process, but when a court makes that ruling, does the NCAA or the NJCAA, do they have any recourse other than to go, yeah, they said give him a year, so we got to give him a year?
I think it'll be appealed and it'll be litigated they could expedite it just because so many people might say, come on, we need an answer. But I don't think there's any way that stands forever as of now. But we'll see. I mean, crazier things have happened. I'm telling
everything is crazy these days.
I seriously wouldn't be shocked if it goes to the Supreme Court. I just wouldn't. Nothing surprises me anymore with anything related to politics, the law. So, I mean, if I will say this, okay, so my logical opinion here, can you go 2 years at JUCO, ball out, and now you have 4 more years to play? I mean, for one, your draft stock's going to drop when you're a 27-year-old, like,
oh yeah,
7th year senior. A lot of guys go to school for 9 years. They're called doctors. Like, come on, guys. It's going to be it's la la land. So
hey, Tommy likey, Tommy won't wingy, okay?
I mean, gosh, I kind of look at that ruling and go, this judge never played sports. definitely
I
doesn't know baseball. I don't know.
I wondered if the judge was a Vandy grad. It was just like,
They
hey,
could be that too.
we
Yeah,
can get
he
our
transferred
we
to
can get our
Vandy, and now he's
quarterback
got
back.
4 more years.
Yeah. Yeah, we're keeping our all SEC
Especially if
quarterback.
he's like
Thank
a
you.
role player guy and he's not going to get drafted, and you definitely want to keep him all 4 years in the lineup.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
He's a 5-tick quarterback. He's not getting drafted. Like the most money he's ever going to make is the NIL from the Vandy boosters trying to keep him there. It's just, but at some point we have to stop this. Like during COVID, I fully understood. Yes, give those kids that missed the NCAA tournament and hoops and who missed their entire spring seasons, give them that year back. 100%, I'm on board. But we have just gone so far the other way. Like, oh, you want to play a couple more years? Okay, you can play a couple more years.
I mean,
What are we doing?
I hate to go even deeper in this, but and no offense to you young men and women, but this generation of that's not fair. I want it my way. Oh, I
Yeah,
feel like it's spreading now to judges. Now,
yeah,
that said, there are judges out there who are younger than both of us. So I can't really act like all judges are, from the greatest
yeah.
generation or even the baby boomers anymore. But I mean, let's have some common sense, people. That's all I ask.
That's the whole thing, and that's what is sorely lacking.